I recently attended the funeral of a dearly departed relative. It was touching. It was nice. It was good to reflect on their lives. Everyone came up. They said their piece. And then came the benediction. This was when the Reverend took the stage and decided to shine. And decided to tell us how horrible we were. How terrible we were. He decided to tell us about an enforcer called Jesus who was coming back to slay us or anyone who doesn't get on board with him. After hearing this diatribe, I decided I would write a letter to the Reverend. Or a matter of fact, all you Reverends that like to run this same talk to the captive audience that you have when a funeral takes place, when people are sad, when they're feeling down and depressed. You know who you are. You love to run the cell. The cell of the real estate in heaven and the surefire way to get there because you know. So this, dear Reverend, or Reverends, whoever is listening, this letter is for you. Dear Reverend, you were requested to give a good word for the dearly departed, to comfort the brokenhearted over the loss of the loved one who lies here today. It is not necessary or timely, in my humble opinion, to use this time a new captive audience to scare up converts for a sweet yet terrifying version of Jesus or sell prospective real estate in heaven. This is not a time to lob threats like grenades into the weary crowd. Why use this time to introduce us to the Jesus that I've never heard about? No, not the one in the manger, nor the martyr hanging on the cross. Not him. But instead, you introduce us to a bloodthirsty zombie who comes back at some set appointed time, riding triumphant on a horse. However, in my opinion, the Jesus you describe would be more fitting if he would ride back on an Abrams tank with some RPGs. Dear Reverend, this is neither the time to confuse us with the fact that Jesus is God, along with being God's middleman, but yet an embodiment of God, the way to God. Didn't you just say that Jesus was God, then his son, but you can't get to God but through Jesus, the son, but yet Jesus is God, so basically you can't get to God via God, or does he now have a landline and a mobile line too? Or is he playing games again? Dear Reverend, when you are selling this real estate, please make it clear. Dear Reverend, you said the dearly departed is in heaven right now, but yet you turn around and say that the dead in Christ shall rise and go to heaven sometime in the near future. This one has been touted for a millennia. So tell me, is heaven immediate? Or will they have to wait for the return of the Führer, aka Jesus? And if immediate, please tell us how you know this. Have you been getting postcards from the dearly departed and not sharing them with us? Please make the cell clear, dear Reverend. People like myself are sitting in the congregation and actually paying attention to what you are saying. And if you are going to use this prime time, this time where you get to shine for the newcomers, why don't you use the opportunity to celebrate life? To talk about love, about being kind, about building character, and try to use this time to tell people of the greatness that they're capable of and the greatness that can be achieved before the inevitable end. Why don't you build up the congregants with a sense of purpose and have them shoot for greatness so that when they leave this planet, there will be nothing but praise and a legacy worth following? I suppose you can't build them up because you don't need them built up. Because if they're built up, they don't need you and your cell. Instead, you choose to talk down to the audience, letting them know that you have the right one and that your religion and their representatives are the right ones for achieving the big cell of eternal existence. You make this claim and offer no substantial evidence. This extraordinary declaration requires extraordinary evidence. Somehow you hope that by shouting ever harder and increasing the threat level ever higher, we will conform and assume that you are indeed correct. You talk down to the audience. You tell them that they're sick, loathsome, sinful and ruined people. This after you just told them that they're made in the image of a beautiful and perfect God. This God that loved them so much he made them imperfect, then had to bring himself back to earth as a son, kill himself, martyr himself for them, and basically hit the reset button. All this, and now they owe him. They owe him their servitude, but it is a gift that comes with strings attached. That will be ever so hard to follow. That requires constant begging for forgiveness from this groveling, loathsome state that now seems to be our birthright or our cross to carry. And please, please don't use this opportunity to try to heap mounds of guilt and send the captive crowd searching to convict themselves of things and crimes they probably have never committed, or have them trying to find some fault with themselves or their lives. Don't pander for more bodies to add to the altar call. Don't use this as your weekly souls for Christ quota. You don't get a better spot in paradise, or do you? Maybe on a hill? Somewhere close to the beach. This is not time for you to preen and strut and parade yourself like a fire safety warden, leading us all from the flames of hell to the eternal bliss and perpetual singing and praise and dizzying glee of this alleged heaven. Not yet confirmed. Dear Reverend, I am turned off, repulsed, and actually embarrassed for you. I'm embarrassed that you are still running this tired old game. Have you no originality? Will you say the same things, the same threats, the same "you could die tonight, a bullet might come through this church and kill somebody right now, are you ready to go?" Where will you be tomorrow if you die? Or where will you be when you wake up dead? I don't know. I know where I will be. Sure. I'll be the same place I was 1 billion years before I got here. And Mr. Smarty Pants, how you know where anybody's gonna be? Do you have any proof? Credible proof, please. None of which I think you have. And how dare you try to besmirch other people's religions and beliefs, some just as wacky as yours, and claim that you have the right one, kind of like Pepsi. Don't look around the crowd, try to strike fear into people's hearts because all you struck with me was a tone of anger, and you left me angry at your pompous posturing and mindless gibberish that you stood in front of us to spout. No one wants to hear your shit anymore, and I sense you know it. Is this why the terror level seems to be getting higher and the impending apocalypse ever so closer? And the talk of heaven being even more beautiful? But you just gotta die. You just gotta die. And bam! Heaven will be right here. Do you think it polite to use this opportunity to torment us with hellish images of your wild imagination of what reality is? Do you think it polite to torment the poor children who are probably listening to you and scared out of their minds, ready for a nightmare of impending doom? We didn't come here to hear this, and it is not your duty to vilify or chastise us. Oh, Reverend, please change your tired old cell, your worn out tout, because for years it's the same damn speech, and not only have I not come to the altar, but I have turned my back on the altar. Happily, I might add. I came here to celebrate the life of a loved one, a life well lived, not to hear the ramblings of a bitter man with futile attempts to pack the church with more mindless, non-thinking marks. And please don't tell me that you are trying to save me, because you are not. Something tells me that you might just be trying to line your pockets with more dough, pack your church and grow it, or add more people to your gang. These small few things I ask of you, Reverend, I hope they're not too much.